Hello, you are welcome to Agriculture Lessons. This is Agriculture Form 1, and we're going to discuss a number of topics, about 12 topics, which we're going to discuss in Agriculture Form 1. And the first and most important topic which we're going to discuss is on natural resources. This topic of natural resources is very, very important since we are dealing with the environment. As you are aware, environment will have a high contributing factor in as far as agricultural production is concerned. So this topic will help the learners to demonstrate an awareness of the environmental factors which influence agricultural production. And also it will also help them on how to modify these environmental factors so as to reduce risks in order to maximize yield and conserve them for sustainability. As you are aware, nowadays the population is growing rapidly. Therefore, we're trying to maximize as much yield as possible. So we cannot run away from environmental factors since they will really contribute much in increasing agricultural production or decreasing if we have not conserved them. Therefore, under natural resources, we're going to discuss a number of items, and one of the items, students must be able to list the natural resources that influence agricultural production. Of course, we're going to define the meaning of the term natural resources, but uh, uh, the important aspect here, we're going to look on some of examples of natural resources which will influence agricultural production. Apart from that, we're also going to explain each and every uh, example of natural resource which we're going to list, more especially on their importance, their importances. So, item number 2, which we're going to go through, is on how explaining the importance of each and every natural source in agricultural production. Apart from that, we're also going to identify ways in which natural resources or influence agricultural production can be depleted. Apart from that, another item is on the definition of conservation of natural resources. And also, students must be able to describe ways of conserving soil, water, air, and vegetation as, as some of the important natural resources which will help in agricultural production. And lastly, it is important also to discuss and explain the effects of rapid population increase on natural resources and the environment. Let's start with the definition of natural resources. What are these natural resources? If we say natural resources, these are things obtained from the physical environment to meet needs of living organisms. Living organisms, they cannot survive without these natural resources. They cannot survive without these natural resources. So that's why we are defining natural resources as things obtained from the physical environment to meet needs of living organisms. Now let us look on the few examples of natural resources that will influence agricultural production. Of course, there are several natural resources that will influence agricultural production, but here we're going to discuss a few of them. And one of the natural resources which will influence agricultural production is water. We also have air or wind, and also vegetation. We also have soil, and lastly sunlight. So these are the five natural resources uh, which will influence agricultural production. Of course, there are several, as I've already said, but we're going to discuss more on the five which we have just listed. So these natural resources which you have just listed, the five of them, they are of very much importance in as far as agricultural production is concerned. Just because these natural resources are essential for the survival of human race. They are very, very essential for the survival of human race. We're going to look on how essential these natural resources are in as far as human race is concerned, their survival is concerned. And also, without these natural resources, people cannot live and even grow crops for survival, which means that uh, both human beings as well as crops and even animals, they will rely more on these natural sources. So that's why we're saying that people cannot live and even grow crops for survival without these natural resources. So we're going to explain one by one each and every natural resources on the importances in agricultural production. Let us start with the importance of water. Water is very, very important just because it is used in irrigation of crops. As we are aware, these crops they will need water in order for them to grow well. Water is one of the necessity when it comes to the crops to make their own food. Photosynthesis process is one of the raw material. Water is one of the raw material in photosynthesis process. So we're saying that water is important just because it is used in irrigating crops. Apart from that, it is also used to generate hydroelectric power. Sometimes we tend to wonder how hydroelectric power is of a necessity in agriculture. Hydroelectric power is very, very important. Some of the machines which we use when it comes to irrigating the crops, they'll need electric power. So if the same water will be generating hydroelectric power, it means they'll help the machines to be working so that irrigation can be facilitated. Apart from that, once you harvest those produce from crops, they also need to be processed. And these crop produce can be processed in some of the industries, of which those industries, they have machines. In order for those machines to work, they also need electricity. So that's why we're saying that another importance of water is that it is used to generate hydroelectric power, which is very essential in agriculture. And also, water is a habitat for layering fish. In short, we can just say water is the home of some of the animals. For example, fish. As you know, fish cannot survive without water. So in order for, let's say if we are doing fishing business, we need water. We need water. So it is a habitat for layering fish. And also water provides water transport. We have some places along the lake, along the river, they can receive their farm produce or they can receive their farm inputs through water transport. So the water transport can be transporting inputs as well as transporting produce. And also water is also of essential just because it is used as an agent of soil formation. This can be through physical and chemical weathering. Water, we're saying that, is also used as an agent of soil formation. In agriculture, we learn that soil comes from it is formed from rocks. So in order for those rocks to break down, they will need water. The water will enter into the rocks, and if it combines with the carbon dioxide, carbonic acid is formed. So that carbonic acid is the one which can dismantle any hard material, including the rock. So we're saying that water can be used as an agent of soil formation. Water is also essential for seed germination. There are three necessities in order for the seed to germinate. That's air, warmth, as well as moisture or water. So in order for the seed to germinate, they'll need water. So that's another importance of water. It is used for seed germination. And also water cools plants as well as animals through transpiration and evaporation respectively. In plants, once they do transpire, the release of water from leaves is done. It will have the cooling effect. The same applies in animals. Once they do, the water evaporates from their bodies, they will also have the cooling effect. And lastly, another importance of water is that it is used in dissolving and uptake of plant nutrients. Plant nutrients, we are talking of the food, the food for the plants, or in other words, we are talking of mineral salts. These mineral salts will be absorbed through the plant roots. But sometimes these mineral salts can be in solid form while in the soil. So it will require water to dissolve those solid mineral salts from the soil so that the plant roots can easily absorb the nutrients. The plant roots can only absorb the nutrients if they are in soluble form. So we're saying that water help to dissolve, or it is used in dissolving of the mineral salts or plant nutrients so that those plants can easily absorb the nutrients. Even though we have so many importance of water, but there are some negative effects of water as well. So we need to discuss a little bit on the negative effects of water. Though the emphasis here was on the importance of water, but we cannot run away on the effects, negative effects of water. For example, we have soil erosion as one of the negative effects of water. Too much water or the running water, they can wipe away the top layers of the soils if those soils are not protected, leading to soil erosion. So that's one of the negative effects of water. Apart from that, the water can also transmit disease to both crops as well as the animals. As the water will be moving from one place to another, they may also carry some pathogens which cause diseases in both crops as well as animals. So I think that another negative effect of water is that it will transmit diseases. Also, they may cause floods. Too much and uncontrollable water can cause floods, which may destroy crops, animals, the land, and even the farmers' houses. And also, too much water may cause water logging in the soil. Too much water, it means there will be high concentration of water in the soil. So the terminology we use there is water logging. If there is too much water in the soil, that will prohibit the entry of air in the soil. Even though water is important in crop production, but air is equally important. So if there is in the soil, there is only water without air, that will have the negative impact in crop production. And also another one, negative effect of water may cause leaching. This happens if there is excessive water. Too much water may lead to the nutrients to go deep down into the soil profile, affecting crop production as well. Just because in order for the crops to grow well, they'll need nutrients. So if there is leaching, where we're saying that the nutrients will be going deep down into the soil profile, where the plant roots cannot reach, that will be the problem. Another natural resource which we have mentioned, which is of very importance in crop production, is air or wind. Air is important just because it provides oxygen for respiration in seed germination. Remember, I mentioned that in order for the seeds to germinate, there are three necessities. That's water, warmth, as well as air, more especially oxygen. So this, in order for the seed to germinate, it will need to be doing respiration. So the seed cannot respire without air or without oxygen. Apart from that, the same oxygen is also used for respiration in the growing plants. During the day, there is high photosynthesis happening in plants, but during the night, there is high respiration process happening. So respiration, even the plants, they'll need air for them to respire. The same applies microorganisms as well as the animals. Both microorganisms as well as animals, they also need oxygen in order for them to be breathing. Be it small animals or even big animals, though, both need enough air in order for them to breathe. Apart from that, air is also necessary for drying of crops. For example, in tobacco, we do not dry tobacco leaves using the sunlight, but rather the air. That's what we call cooling or carrying tobacco, air drying. And also air, more especially carbon dioxide, is used for photosynthesis. Remember, I mentioned that photosynthesis is all about the plants making their own food. So in order for the plants to make their own food, there are raw materials which are needed. And one of the raw material is carbon dioxide. also mentioned at some point in time water as as another raw material which is used in photosynthesis process. So carbon dioxide is used for photosynthesis. In order for the plants to make their own food, they'll need this air, so-called carbon dioxide. And we've talked much on air. We can also talk of wind. It brings about rainfall. It brings about rainfall. It's because of the wind which will be carrying, once the wind is blown, will be carrying the moisture from the ground and going up to the atmosphere where the clouds will be made. So it's the influence of the wind in order for the moisture from the ground to be going up at the atmosphere so that the clouds can be made. And also wind will help in pollination. Wind helps in pollination. It is very, very essential in pollination. Pollination, we're talking of transfer of pollen from anthers to stigma. So this one is also facilitated by wind. Of course, there are several agents of pollination, and one of the agents is wind. And wind can also help in seed dispersal. In order for the plants to multiply, this seed dispersal is vital as well. So in order for those seeds to be dispersed everywhere, wind is the one which will help. And lastly, wind can also be used in driving windmills. There are some of the mills which are driven by wind, so we call them windmills. These windmills, they'll be generating electricity. Which can be used in several ways. Let's say in pumping water for irrigation, and even some of the industries, they can also use the same electricity. We have discussed on the good part of wind, but we also have some negative effects of wind, and these are: number one, it may cause plant logging. We are talking of falling down of plants, which may damage the fruits or even the whole plant once they fall off. Apart from that, another negative effect is of transmission of diseases and pests. As the wind will be blowing, they'll be carrying some pathogens, therefore causing diseases from one crop to another, or from one animal to another. And also the pest may also be carried by the same wind, so transmitting diseases and pests. And also wind may cause soil erosion. More especially where the land is bare and those soils are dry. It will be easy for the wind to blow off or to carry the top layer of the soil, causing soil erosion. Apart from that, it may also increase the rate of evapotranspiration. We're talking of loss of water from water bodies, soil, and plants. More especially to have the negative impact in plants. If there is increase in the rate of evapotranspiration, the plants will start to wilt. Even the water bodies, if they lose too much water, the water bodies may dry up. And lastly, the wind, if they are so strong, they may damage farm buildings, destroying even the farm. Let us now look on the importance of vegetation. Vegetation is one of the natural resources which will also have an impact in agri-crops. So one of the importance of vegetation is that it will protect the soil from raindrop impacts which causes erosion. You know, soil erosion is not good in crop production. So if there are some vegetation, they'll be protecting the soil from raindrop impact, which definitely may reduce erosion. How will this vegetation protect the soil from raindrop impacts? As we know, the vegetations, they have the leaves as well as the stem. So as the rain will be coming, first of all, the raindrops will be hitting the leaves as well as the stems, as well as the branches before those drops reach the soil. Therefore, they will have they'll be leaching, the raindrops will be leaching onto the soil with less force, reducing splash erosion. Apart from that, this vegetation will also trap run off water, will trap run off water. The vegetation, they have the stems. So those stems will be reducing the speed of runoff. The stems will be reducing the speed of runoff. And also those vegetation, they also have the roots. So those roots, they will also they will have the controlling impact in when it comes to the runoff water. There will be less force as the water will be moving. This vegetation will also maintain the balance of gases in the air, hence reduce climate change and global warming effects. The vegetation, as I mentioned earlier on, that they will be using carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen in that process of photosynthesis. Therefore, they will maintain the balance of gases in the air. Carbon dioxide, we are going to learn in Form 2 on the climate change. Carbon dioxide is one of the harmful gas. Of course, it is essential in vegetation just because it will help when they are making their own food. But if there is high concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, may cause climate change and global warming. So, since this vegetation will be trapping or absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, which is very important gas, therefore, that's why I was saying that it maintains the balance of gases in the air, hence reducing climate change and global warming. And also this vegetation will also provide shelter and breeding habitat for wild animals and useful organisms such as pollinators. Since this vegetation, they have the leaves, so they will have the shade, providing shelter for habitat and for animals. And some of this vegetation, they are edible, they are consumable, therefore they will be source of food for both the animals and the humans. And they can also be used for medicinal purposes. And lastly, may provide fuel wood for cooking. May provide fuel wood for cooking. Not forgetting, those trees will also provide materials for building and tobacco carrying. As we can see, most of the buildings nowadays, if you can see on the roof, they are just full of timber. Those are the products from trees. Let us now look on the importance of soil. Soil is very essential just because it's where we plant our crops, and it is the same soil which will therefore anchor the plants. It will anchor the plants. Definitely, those plants, in order for them to stand firm, they'll need soil. So that's why I was saying that one of the importance of soil is that it will anchor the plants. Apart from that, the soil will also support the plants by providing water and nutrients necessary for their growth. Remember, we've mentioned that in order for the crops to grow very well, they'll need water as well as nutrients. So those water as well as nutrients, they'll be found in the soil. They'll be found in the soil. That's why we say soil will support the plants by providing water and the nutrients which are necessary for the growth of the plants. It is also a habitat for soil organisms responsible for decomposition process. For example, we have bacteria. Those bacteria, they are very useful organisms. They will speed up the decomposition process. So they will dwell in the soil. It is a habitat for soil organisms. Lastly, let us look on the last natural resource, which is very important and crucial in agriculture, which is sunlight. Sunlight is very useful just because it is used in plants. The plants will make their own food through that process which we call photosynthesis. So, in order for this to happen, they'll need sunlight. They'll need sunlight. Here we are. We have it's like the equation for photosynthesis. This left side here we have the raw materials, and the last part here we have the output. We have the output. So the raw materials, we have water and carbon dioxide. And the output, we have carbohydrate and oxygen. So this is the process of photosynthesis. In order for photosynthesis to take place, they will need raw materials like water and carbon dioxide. But these raw materials, the plants cannot make their own food with the presence of these two raw materials, but they will need the presence of sunlight. So in order for the sunlight energy to be trapped, they will need, it is the influence of the green pigment which is found in the leaves of the plant, so-called chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll is the one which will trap sunlight energy so that these two raw materials, water and carbon dioxide, mix up or cook up so that they produce carbohydrate and oxygen. So, in short, the importance of sunlight here is that it is used in plants to make their own food. Apart from that, sunlight is also a source of heat energy which can be used for proper drying of crops. As you know, soon after harvesting, what we do is that we get the crop produce and display them under the sun so that they can dry up quickly. So it is a source of heat energy which can be used for proper drying of crops. And also sunlight provides heat necessary for controlling some pests. The pests, these are living organisms. They have their conducive environment. So, if there is too much heat from the sunlight in the soil, some of these pests, they may not survive. So it means the heat from the sunlight at least will help to minimize multiplication of pests. Since too much heat, some of the pests may not survive. But the important part is that once they do not survive, it means our crops will be safe. So that's why we have regarded it as the importance, as an importance. Let us stop here. We're going to continue with the same topic of natural resource. We just covered on the meaning of the term natural resources. We have also listed the 5 important natural resources which influence agricultural production, and we have also explained the importance of each and every natural resource which we have listed, the 5 natural resources which we have listed. So next time we are going to proceed by looking on the depletion of natural resources. Thank you.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani ajala kalime ajala kuchwe manyazi ajala katende yanti ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.